The building on Elm Street was no longer a home. It was a blackened skeleton looming over the street as a stark reminder of what was lost. Once, it was filled with laughter, the sounds of children playing, and the warmth of families gathering for dinner. Now, only silence and ash remained, echoing the devastation that swept through in a single night. 12 families lost everything in a fire that should never have happened. Their lives were turned upside down in a matter of hours, forced to leave behind not just their possessions, but the memories and milestones that made those walls a home. The fire didn't just destroy rooms and furniture, it erased years of birthdays, holidays, and quiet moments. The air still reeked of burnt plastic, a constant reminder of the disaster. Every breath carried the scent of loss, and the sight of melted toys and scorched photo frames on the sidewalk made it impossible to forget what had happened. Even days later, the smoke seemed to hang in the air, refusing to let the neighborhood move on. Kids avoided the ruins, and the neighborhood felt wounded, its heart ripped out. The playground, once alive with laughter, now stood empty and silent. Parents kept their children close, afraid to let them wander near the charred remains. The sense of community that once defined Elm Street was replaced by a heavy, shared grief. This wasn't just about property. It was about lives upended in an instant. Families clung to each other, searching for comfort in the face of overwhelming loss. The fire took more than belongings. It shattered routines, relationships, and the feeling of safety that every person deserves in their own home. Imagine standing on the curb, watching your world burn, knowing it was preventable. The helplessness was suffocating, as neighbors gathered in disbelief, watching flames consume everything familiar. The knowledge that this tragedy could have been avoided only deepened the pain and anger. Families lost not just possessions, but their sense of safety and community. In the aftermath, they found themselves in unfamiliar shelters, surrounded by strangers, trying to comfort their children and reassure them that things would be okay, even when they weren't sure themselves. The trauma lingered. Sleepless nights, anxious children, invisible scars. Parents struggled to answer difficult questions, and children woke from nightmares, haunted by memories of sirens and smoke. The emotional wounds ran deep, affecting every aspect of daily life. This was more than an insurance claim. It was a public health crisis. The fire exposed gaps in safety, support, and mental health care, leaving survivors to navigate a maze of bureaucracy while still reeling from shock. The community rallied, but the need for long-term help was clear. The Elm Street fire showed us the true cost of neglect, human suffering that can't be measured in dollars or square footage. It forced everyone to confront the reality that safety is not a guarantee, and that the consequences of inaction are devastating. It demanded a better system, one that could see danger before it turned to tragedy, and one that values every life, every family, and every home as more than just a building. Fire isn't just a property problem, it's a crisis that reaches far beyond the loss of bricks and mortar. When flames break out, the impact ripples through entire communities, affecting lives in ways that are often invisible at first glance. Burns are devastating, leaving behind scars that are both physical and emotional. Survivors often face months or even years of painful treatments, surgeries, and rehabilitation. The road to recovery is long, and the trauma can last a lifetime. But smoke is just as deadly, filling lungs with toxic chemicals in minutes. Even a small fire can produce enough smoke to overwhelm a person, causing suffocation or poisoning before flames ever reach them. Smoke inhalation can cause immediate and long-term health issues, heart attacks, strokes, and chronic respiratory illness. The effects can linger for years, making it difficult for survivors to breathe, work, or even sleep normally. Children and the elderly are hit hardest. Their bodies are more vulnerable to heat, smoke, and stress, making them more likely to suffer serious complications or even death. Fires unleash a cocktail of poisons from everyday materials, turning homes into chemical hazards. Plastics, foams, and synthetic fabrics release toxic gases that can cause cancer, neurological damage, and other chronic diseases. The psychological toll is immense. PTSD, anxiety, and depression are common among survivors. The fear and trauma of escaping a fire can haunt people for years, affecting their relationships, work, and sense of self. And the loss of feeling safe. Displacement adds another layer: homelessness, stress, and worsening health. Families forced from their homes may struggle to find stability, facing new risks in shelters or temporary housing. Firefighters aren't just saving buildings, they're performing emergency health interventions. Every rescue is a race against time to prevent death, disability, and further trauma. Every code, inspection, and sprinkler is preventative medicine. These measures are designed to stop tragedy before it starts, protecting not just property, but lives and futures. Treating fire as just a property issue ignores the real human cost. Behind every burned building is a story of loss, pain, and resilience. Fire is a health issue, full stop. It demands the same attention and resources as any other public health threat. Prevention is public health in action. Education, alarms, and preparedness save lives long before the first spark. That's why fire safety matters to everyone, because protecting our health means preventing fires before they start. The Elm Street fire started with a common, dangerous fire code violation. But this wasn't just a random accident. It was the result of a pattern that had been ignored for far too long. In the quiet hours before dawn, families were jolted awake by alarms and smoke. Their lives changed in an instant by something that could have been prevented. The landlord, Mr. Profits Over People, illegally subdivided apartments and overloaded the wiring. He squeezed as many tenants as possible into unsafe spaces, ignoring the risks. Every corner cut was another dollar in his pocket, but it meant families lived with hazards lurking behind every wall. Inspectors had cited him months before, but the warning was buried in paperwork. The violation was just one of many in a thick stack of files, lost in the shuffle of daily bureaucracy. The urgency faded as the days passed, replaced by new reports and fresh emergencies. When the deadline passed, nothing happened. No follow-up, no enforcement. The paperwork sat untouched, gathering dust, while the danger inside the building grew. Tenants went about their lives, unaware that the clock was ticking toward disaster. The system relied on overworked inspectors and manual checks, a recipe for disaster. With too many buildings and too few staff, critical warnings slipped through the cracks. Inspectors did their best, but the workload was overwhelming, and the tools were outdated. Worse, Mr. Profits Over People owned buildings in several cities, running the same scam everywhere. He knew how to exploit the gaps in the system, moving from one city to the next, always staying a step ahead of enforcement. Another of his buildings in Oakwood had a fire for the same reason, but that report never reached Elm Street's inspectors. The tragedy repeated itself, as if the system had learned nothing. Each city's blind spot became a shield for his negligence. Each city kept its own records, with no way to connect the dots. Information was trapped in filing cabinets and computer systems that didn't talk to each other. The pattern of violations and fires was invisible to everyone except the landlord himself. The warning signs were there, scattered across different offices and cities. If anyone had seen them all together, the danger would have been obvious. But the pieces of the puzzle were never put together. No one saw the full picture. Each inspector, each office only saw a fragment of the truth. The system's blind spots allowed the risk to grow unchecked. The system failed not because no one cared, but because no one could see the pattern. Dedicated people tried to keep tenants safe, but they were fighting an invisible enemy, one hidden by bureaucracy and outdated processes. The result, a preventable tragedy. Families lost their homes, their memories, and sometimes even loved ones, all because the warning signs were missed. This wasn't just bad luck, it was a systemic blind spot. The failures were built into the very structure meant to protect people. And it left families in ruins, their lives upended by a tragedy that should never have happened. The cost of these hidden violations is measured not just in property, but in shattered lives and broken trust. Mr. Profits Over People thrived on the system's weaknesses. He knew cities didn't share information, so violations in one place didn't follow him to the next. He looked like a first-time offender everywhere, hiding a pattern of neglect. The lack of a central database let him dodge accountability and keep endangering lives. Inspectors couldn't see his history, so he kept playing the same dangerous game. After the Oakwood fire, no one connected it to Elm Street. If agencies had shared data, his properties would have been flagged for urgent inspection. Instead, the system's silence enabled disaster. This wasn't just oversight, it was a loophole big enough for tragedy. The system let serial offenders operate in the shadows. Until the fire, he was untouchable. The cost: 12 families lost everything. After Elm Street, outrage finally led to action. The solution? A mandatory, statewide fire code violation database. Every serious violation and fire report would be uploaded in real time, accessible to all inspectors statewide. No more lost paperwork, no more information silos. Now, a landlord's history followed them everywhere. If someone like Mr. Profits Over People tried to hide, the system would flag him instantly. Inspectors could see patterns, not just isolated incidents. High-risk owners triggered automatic follow-ups and stricter inspections. The database turned scattered warnings into a clear, actionable picture. It was prevention powered by information. Finally, the system could see and stop danger before disaster struck. The Fire Safety and Information Sharing Act changed everything. Now, fire departments had to report violations and fire causes within 24 hours. The database was live, current, and accessible to all safety agencies. Building inspectors, housing authorities, and law enforcement could all see the same facts. Smart analytics flagged repeat offenders and dangerous patterns. If multiple fires happened in one area, the system sent alerts for targeted inspections. Data became a proactive tool, not just a record of past disasters. Firefighters could intervene before tragedy struck. The new approach was proactive, not reactive. Information became the most powerful tool in fire prevention. In the 21st century, data saves lives. The results were dramatic. Repeat fires in buildings with prior violations dropped by over 60% in 2 years. Landlords could no longer hide. They had to fix their properties or face real consequences. Fire departments focused on high-risk buildings, stopping disasters before they started. Follow-up inspections happened in days, not months. Fewer fires meant fewer injuries, deaths, and ER visits for smoke inhalation. Families felt safer, and communities grew stronger. The database didn't just save property, it saved lives and prevented trauma. Treating fire safety as a data problem delivered real results. Prevention became the new normal. So, what does this mean for you? Those inspection stickers and certificates aren't just paperwork, they're proof your home is safer. Pay attention to them. Ask questions if they're missing or expired. You're the eyes and ears for your community. If you see a hazard, blocked exits, exposed wires, report it. Your call could prevent a tragedy. Every report adds to the system, helping spot risks before they escalate. Support data sharing policies and demand proactive safety from your leaders. The cost of prevention is tiny compared to the cost of disaster. Fire safety is everyone's responsibility. Stay alert, ask questions, and take action. Your vigilance, combined with a smart system, keeps your home safe. Sometimes a quiet night is the biggest victory. The Elm Street fire was a tragedy, but it taught us a vital lesson. Ignored violations aren't minor, they're sparks waiting for fuel. For too long, we missed the patterns that led to disaster. Siloed information let bad actors slip through the cracks. The new database turned scattered warnings into prevention. Now, inspectors see the whole picture and act before tragedy strikes. Prevention is quiet work, but it saves lives. Every regulation, every report, every shared fact is a shield. The disasters you never hear about are the real victories. Don't tune out when you hear about fire safety or data sharing. Remember Elm Street and the lives saved by connecting the dots. Prevention is the most important work there is.